Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Allison and today I am finally getting around to my book review of Dune. So this is the book, or this is what my copy looks like, and this was a really fun read for me. It did take me a little bit to get used to, but before I just start talking about the book, I just wanted to kind of outline how I do my book reviews. So the first thing I like to do is talk a little bit about the book, like what genre it is, and what age range I think it's for, how many pages it is, and that kind of thing. So Dune is a adult science fiction novel. I guess it could technically be considered YA as well, because it was written or published in 1965, so it's kind of an older book, so there's not really anything that I would consider like only adult content in this book. So if you're a young adult and you are interested in reading this book, I don't see any reason why you shouldn't pick it up. It is 603 pages long, or at least my copy of this book is. It is quite thick, but there is a lot of stuff in the back, like extra notes and things that the publishing house included with it. I don't know if it was in the original or not, but that's basically all I need to say about that, other than the fact that the trope in this book is mostly like chosen one kind of thing. So those are like just like overview of the book. So when I'm doing my book reviews, I'm just gonna stick this right here because I don't want to hold it the entire time. Okay, for my book reviews, I rate a book on 5 different categories, and the categories I have are character, world building or the setting, plot, writing style, and enjoyment. And I pick out things that I liked and didn't like about each aspect of that book, and then I give it like kind of an overall rating. And then when I get all of those areas rated, I add the numbers up for those, and then I divide them by 5, and that gives me an average rating, and that also gives me my star rating. I really don't want to get into like what specific values and stuff I use in this video, so because I just want to focus on reviewing Dune. So I'm just gonna go ahead and get started. My first category is character. The one thing that I didn't like about the characters in this book was that I had a really hard time connecting with them. Like, I don't know. Character connection for me is really important. So if I'm not really connecting to a character, usually I won't finish reading the book. It usually ends up being like an instant DNF. But for me, even though I didn't really connect with the main character and like the secondary characters that there are, it really didn't bother me for some reason. I think the allure for me was like just trying to figure out what all was going to happen, because it's kind of like the plot is kind of all like laid out at the very beginning of the book, and then you are just like following along the story trying to figure out how it comes about happening. So it's really just a really interestingly written book, and I'll talk more about that when I get to the writing style portion of this review. So some things to note is there are a few different points of view in this book, but they don't get like, now authors tend to write points of view like they get their own chapter. But in Dune, the characters that have different points of view, they are like usually within the same, it could be like one paragraph is one character speaking, and then the next paragraph is another character speaking. Like there's no definite header like this is character or whatever, and it gives the character's name. But that didn't really pull me out of the story either, because I never questioned or was confused on which character's point of view it currently was. The surrounding text did a good enough job of like, even just most of the time it was just outright saying the character's name somewhere within the context, and I never was confused on whose point of view was happening at that moment. So that was really nice and really interesting. Let's see, the characters' ages range from teenager. The main character is a teenager at the start of the book, and I think is still a teenager at the end of the book. and there are older adults mixed in there as well. So I feel like all of the characters are really well developed. They don't feel like fluff. Like the secondary characters don't feel like, oh, they're just there for that one purpose, but they actually feel like they have like weight and gravity in the story. Like if that character wasn't there, the story would have to have been written a different way. So that was really nice. I don't know, I just really liked the characters, even though I didn't emotionally connect, it's really strange for me to really like the characters in a book that I didn't emotionally connect with, but that's what happened in Dune, and I really, really enjoyed it. Let's see, my next section that I'm going to talk about is the world or the setting. So Dune has a very unique setting. It is, obviously it's science fiction, so that lends to the uniqueness of the world. But Dune is set on a planet in a galaxy somewhere, and it's called, the planet's name is called Arrakis. I think that's how you say it. And it's covered in mostly sand. That's why the book is called Dune. Dune is like a slang term for this planet. And it's literally just a bunch of sand dunes. Like the entire planet is just covered in sand. There's not a lot of water. It rarely rains. You have the people in the book have to wear like special suits to go outside. It's just really, really, really interesting. There are some giant worm-like creatures that live on this planet, and then there's an interesting substance called spice. That's like the slang term for it. I don't remember what the technical name was. I can't remember. If I tried to say it, I probably would mess it up anyways. So there's giant worms, the planet's mostly sand dunes, there's not a lot of water, and there's a very interesting and very important substance on this planet. It only is on this planet, called spice, and it starts a lot of like wars and battles, obviously because it's highly sought after and you can only get it in one place. So basically whoever controls the spice controls pretty much everything else going on in the story. So I feel like the world is super well developed. You really don't travel away from Dune, the planet. Like when it starts out, it's somewhere else, and then most of the story takes place on Dune. But it just felt like, reading it just felt like it had existed forever. Like this place has been around forever. It has existed for so many years, and it's gonna exist for so many years after this. Like it just felt real. Frank Herbert wrote a very well-developed world that did not feel info-dumpy at all whatsoever. There was never a moment when I was reading where I was like, okay, this is a planet about sand and this is so boring. I never experienced that. I loved reading this book. All of the world building that kind of happened within it was so well done. I never got bored, which I feel like that's just saying a lot about a book that's written that's on a planet that's mostly made out of sand and rocks. Like that's literally the topography of the place is like sand and rocks. There's not much of anything else going on, but it never got old. Like every time there was a description of a certain place in the book, I was like, I never experienced that, oh, I've heard this before, can we please move on? Like let's talk about something else. This thing is just dirt, like nobody cares. But it's not written that way. So I don't know. It's just everything that you get told in the story for world building just helps move the plot forward. Like the only reason places are brought up and described is because they're important, not because the author thought we needed to have a 3-page discussion on why certain trees could grow on this planet and not other kinds of trees. So I don't know, it was just really fresh, and it's just, I just really, really enjoyed it. My copy does have a map. It's in the back. I found it to be a little bit difficult to read, but there's like a legend that goes with it that helps you kind of like read the map. I should show you guys what it looks like. I don't know if all copies came with one. I'm assuming they do because it looks like it's important. Let me see where it's at. It's right there. Oh my goodness. Okay, so this is the map. And it doesn't look anything like I thought it would. I thought it was gonna be like, you know, a round, like look like a planet from space, and it doesn't. It's like the North Pole, and then so like if you were looking at like the top of the Earth, like a globe, and the view you could see from the top down, that's kind of what this map is. There is some like descriptions and stuff of places on the map, but I really just, I don't know, I didn't really pay that much attention to the map because the world was so well explained within the story that I really didn't need to. Oh, in the back of the book there is like a huge glossary of all these different terms, because there are a lot of terms in this book that I had never heard before. They're like unique to the story and they help tell the story. So there is a whole glossary in the back of my copy of the book. I would assume that it's in all of the other copies of the books, but I only have this one to go off of. That was really helpful for me, kind of like if you've read, what's another book, like The City of Brass has one in it. It's just like a glossary of like important places and terms and people and stuff, so that you can kind of acclimate yourself to the story. So if you're worried about nothing making sense, you could probably read that first. And then as you're reading, you'll be like, oh, I've heard this before, and if you forgot, you could just always flip back and look for it. So I think those are really handy, especially when you come across a world like Dune, where just there's so much that's different, and it's just like, instead of deviating from the story within the story and the author explaining it through, you know, the whatever is happening, like info dumping, it's in the glossary in the back. So if you want to pull yourself out of the story, you can go look for it, but it's not going to be in the actual story, which I really appreciate, because I hate getting ripped out of a story by information that's kind of important but doesn't really serve the purpose of telling the story. It's just really irritating. So that is all I have to say about the setting of Dune. The next thing I want to talk about is plot/pacing. So for me, I felt that the plot and the pacing were actually pretty good. I was immersed in the story. It just sucked me right in, and I was like, oh my gosh, I have to figure out what's gonna happen to this main character. Like, his whole life has been turned upside down, and what's gonna happen, like what's he gonna do next, what's gonna happen, like what kind of outside forces are gonna come in and, you know, flip things around even more. I don't know, the big main plot points were kind of predictable, but also not really, because they're kind of like alluded to. So in the book, at the beginning of every chapter, there's like an excerpt from a writing that's in the world of Dune. So a different character in the world of Dune wrote something, and there's like an excerpt of that at the beginning of every chapter, and it kind of tells you what's gonna happen before you read the chapter. It doesn't say it outright, but it's just like drops little like hints and stuff, which I feel is intentional, because you always know where the plot is heading, you just don't know how you're gonna get there. And that's what made it interesting for me, was just trying to figure out how the character was gonna get from point A to point B. I might have already known what was gonna happen at point B, but I didn't know how that was going to happen, and I thought that was just the most interesting way to tell a story. So I do feel that at the end of the story, you're left with a lot of unanswered questions, and even more questions than you had before. I feel like that's intentional. I think a lot of those questions are going to be answered in the next book. At least I hope they are, because that would be really nice. I do appreciate that the plot is focused on our main character's story. So a lot of the times when you have books that have different point of views, you're also getting told like 3 different stories at one time, and that could be really distracting, especially if you're really enjoying a certain character's point of view. This Dune it just follows, so there are different characters' points of view that you get, but it's only following our main character. From, you know, the beginning to the end, and I really enjoy that. I really like that the plot does not focus on 3 different other characters' stories, because it's just not important. It's not the purpose of this book. So I really enjoyed that part of it too. I think maybe the first 80 pages of this book did drag for me just a little bit, and I can actually tell you why right now, because the next thing I want to talk about is the writing style, and that's what that has to do with. So the first 80-ish pages of this book, I was really struggling with trying to get into it, trying to kind of understand how things were working, and it was not going super well for me. I was like, I don't know if I should give this book more time, but then I was like, you know what, just I'm just gonna push through it and hopefully it will get better in the next, I don't know, 30-ish pages or so. But right around the 80-ish page mark, I was like, yes, this is good. This is gonna work for me. And the reason why I struggled with it so much in the beginning is because the writing is just so different from what I'm used to. Now, I understand that this book is older. It was published in 1965 and written way before that. So I thought at first it was just odd to me because it's older and I was like maybe not really understanding like the context and stuff. But I've read The Lord of the Rings and I completely understand what that book is talking about, and I don't really have any problems like acclimating myself to the language. So as I was reading, the more I read, the more I was like, I wonder if this is on purpose. And the thing that it was is just the characters talked really weird. To me anyways, just their way they talked was just super weird. It was like super formal and super like just weird things that they would say, and I'm like, that's so weird, why would you say that? And then the more I read it, the more I realized that it's intentional, it's on purpose, it's just how they talk in this world. And the thing that it reminded me of is actually an old TV show, an oldish TV show. It's probably, well, let's see. My oldest son is 8, and I was watching it, I think it was out before he was born. So it's probably like around 10 years old, and it's Spartacus. It was a show that was on Stars or something like that, and it's about gladiators in the Roman Empire, like gladiator slaves in the Roman Empire, and they all just talk so weird in that show. If you've seen it, you don't understand what I'm talking about, but that's what the way the characters converse in this story reminded me of. Like, it's just so like fancy, and I was just like, why are you talking like this? This is so irritating. But then around the 80-ish page mark, like the story really started picking up, and I was just like, you know what, I feel like this writing style is intentional. The characters are supposed to talk this way. I'm not supposed to be weirded out by it. It's gonna be fine. And I ended up getting used to it, and it ended up being really good. Like, it just kind of like, I don't know, the writing style like grows on you, and I just got to a point where I was like, if the characters talked any other way than this, it wouldn't make any sense. It just wouldn't fit in. So that was like my only thing I had to say about writing style. Other than that, like other than the time it took me to get used to it, I absolutely loved it. It was the best. So my last category I want to talk about is my enjoyment, and that's like my overall like enjoyment, like my likes, my overall likes, my dislikes about this story. So the things that I really liked about Dune are the setting. I didn't know that a planet that's mostly dirt could be so alluring, but that's what Dune is. It's just got hidden secrets, guys. So I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed the depth of like a planet that you would assume from like face value is just like devoid of all life, and then there's just all these things happen and you're just like, okay, this place is a lot more interesting than I thought it was at first. So that was probably my favorite thing. What else did I like about the story? I liked the main character. Again, I can't really rate like the characters because I didn't really connect with any of them, but I did like the main character. Like, I didn't absolutely hate him or anything, and he didn't like, I wasn't rolling my eyes constantly at him. So that was a good thing. I guess that kind of ties into the one thing that I didn't like, and that was that I did not connect to the characters. Usually I really crave that emotional connection with characters and the stories that I'm reading. That just didn't happen here, but the rest of the book was so well written and so immersive for me that I just really didn't care that I wasn't really connecting with the characters. And I'm not sure if that's going to be how the rest of the books are going to go. I really don't know much about what's going to happen next because I don't read book synopses or anything, so I'm assuming that the next book, it takes place right after the first book ended, or like maybe a few years in the future. But so hopefully maybe the character disconnection will change for me, and maybe I'll start emotionally connecting to them, or maybe I won't, and it probably won't matter because I'm assuming that the rest of the books are written with just as much magic as Dune is, so I'm really not that worried about it. Overall, Dune ended up getting 4.5 out of, I think it was 4.5. Yeah, about 4.5 out of 5 stars for me. It was just such a well-written book. I really, really enjoyed reading it. If any of the things that I talked about in this video, you know, remotely makes sense, or maybe you want to try reading it, I hope that this video has encouraged you to try reading it. I just want to, I don't want, like, this is my first book review, and and it's about a book that I really enjoyed reading, and I'm sure I'm probably going to be doing some about books that I didn't enjoy reading so much, but I just don't want my book reviews to turn into like author bashing or book bashing or whatever. So even if I do read a book that I don't really care for, I'm still gonna try to review it in a way that that other people might still want to read it. Like, I'm not gonna trash talk a book because just because I don't like it doesn't mean that other people won't enjoy it, because I've read lots of books that people absolutely hate and I love them, and that's fine. I think that's wonderful. I think that's a wonderful thing about the book community. So if you're looking for trash talking on books, that really doesn't happen on here very often, unless the book is absolutely horrendous. And I'm talking like it doesn't got a dang thing going for it. Maybe that might happen. I can think of one book that I kind of trash talk a little bit, but I'm only trash talking the book, not the author. So, and I'm not gonna bring it up. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this book review video. Hopefully I didn't babble too awful much, and what I said, it makes sense. I am excited to do more of these in the future because I feel like this would be a really great way for us to connect on like different books and such, and hopefully you guys can get some great book recommendations from me. I want to say thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you guys in another one. Bye!